Let's begin with the end of Unai Emery.
Blues ring around a half full Emirates, a half empty Emirates really. 7 games without a win. It's Arsenal's worst run since 1992.
7 games without a win would lead to the end of Unai Emery's Arsenal tenure, with many Arsenal fans furious, lost, and seeking a path to success. Arsenal were officially the laughingstock of the Premier League, and comments like this from Gary Neville just epitomise that.
If you couldn't find a more erratic bunch of players in terms of defending to watch, you couldn't, honestly, you really couldn't. If you said go and find the 3 or 4 most erratic centre-backs in Europe, it's almost as if that's been the brief to the recruitment department, because it really is, to be fair, something that's,
Luckily, the pain wouldn't be there for much longer, as Mikel Arteta was announced as the Arsenal manager with a clear philosophy and an attacking way of playing football. He had the backing of the fans, he obviously had the experience of being a former player. Everything was looking bright for Arsenal, but that excitement would quickly fade away, with the Gunners only picking 7 points out of a possible 18 in Mikel Arteta's first 6 games in charge. Mikel had plenty of work to do. Whether a 4-0 win against Newcastle and a 3-2 win against Everton would make things look a lot better. But then disaster struck.
Good afternoon and welcome to Sky Sports News. As the Premier League, Football League and Women's Super League is suspended until April the 3rd due to coronavirus.
Yes, coronavirus hit and football had to be switched off. Mikel Arteta was one of the first people to actually contract the virus, so he had to go into isolation, and he was actually the catalyst for the Premier League getting shut down. So Arsenal's momentum was stalled and they had to reset after the COVID outbreak had slowed down. But wow, let us just talk about lockdown Arsenal, possibly the worst Arsenal side I have ever seen. The sort of things I was seeing on the pitch was an absolute monstrosity. You know, the performances from some of the players. We even gave Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang a new contract and he wasn't firing. We had players kicking the ball out for absolutely no reason, like Hector Bellerin. We had players laughing on the bench. We had players who couldn't even take a throw-in, and just some of the celebrations we were getting from our players as well was just absolutely hilarious. It was too unserious. You know, going from a side which looked destined for greatness to a side tripping over their own feet, it was just something else really, and Arteta couldn't really get us going, but it helped us, you know, it helped us sort of. We had a force to gain this trust in Arteta. We were kind of forced to see the positives. Although there were none, there was loads of people calling for Arteta to be sacked, which probably is rightly so, because some of the performances, some of the results, it was just absolutely just atrocious. We had Mesut Ozil on the bench. Everyone was crying out for him to get some minutes. Arteta didn't feel like he was good enough. We had players just chilling on the bench like it was nothing in games. It was really a downward time for Arsenal. And when people say, you know, Arsenal and Arteta, it's always been rosy, I always point to lockdown. You know, the times where things just were not clicking at all. Nothing was working. Arteta was under scrutiny. AFTV was at its peak, and just no harmony was in the Arsenal side. It was pretty much probably worse than the Emery days. And I think the only thing that kind of kept Arteta in the job is the fact that there were no fans in the stadium. I genuinely think if there were fans in the stadium, Arteta would not have lasted through lockdown. And I feel like that's a blessing in disguise, because if he didn't last through lockdown, who would have known where we are now? We've got one of the best managers in the world right now, who's helping us play some of the best football I've seen this club play as well. So maybe lockdown was necessary. It was character development. But let's now get into the good stuff. Forget lockdown, because the start to the 2021-22 season was absolutely horrendous. A 2-0 L to Brentford, where most of our players were out with COVID. A 2-0 L to Chelsea, where Romelu Lukaku just decided to turn into Didier Drogba. Then getting battered 5-0 by City. It almost looked like Arteta had just done a full circle, and every single Arsenal fan was certainly against him. Not even a nice cheeky stat pad session against West Brom would lift the mood, because Arsenal were doomed. It was the worst start to a Premier League season. We'd scored none in the Premier League, and we'd conceded 9 goals in 3 Premier League games. But you know what's funny? The season actually turned out to be alright. Arsenal finished 5th, the highest finish we'd done under Mikel Arteta in the Premier League, and we were scoring goals, we were looking ever more solid at the back, the profiles in our squad were getting better, the likes of Tomiyasu, the Ben White, everyone was sort of clicking, you know. Saka was really establishing himself as the right wing, Smith Rowe was in terrific form, Ødegaard was kind of making a name for himself in the Arsenal red and white. And well, of course, it's disappointing that we missed out on Champions League football, but it was really nice to see the fluid nature of Arteta's football. It was really nice to see certain players getting back confidence, and it was just really nice to see that there was a glimpse of something. We could finally see there was a philosophy and identity in our player structure, and it kind of had, you know, the tacticians, the real proper Arsenal fans who analyse, they kind of were looking at our games and being like, you know what, I see us being a really top side in the future. The following season, Arsenal were then able to make 2 superstar signings from Manchester City, and these players were properly the start of the resurgence to us going back in the title fight. They made us look unstoppable. We started the league the best way we ever could. A loss to United really was a bump, but we just never looked back until Christmas, where of course results started to get a bit shaky, but Gabriel Jesus and Alexander Zinchenko's impact on the Arsenal team should not be underestimated. They added a new dimension and a new quality to our side. I mean, who doesn't remember when Gabriel Jesus just turned into R9 for absolutely no reason at the start of the 22-23 season? He was just an absolute beast. The game against Leicester at home in particular was a game where I was in just utter awe. It's a shame to see how much he's fallen since then, but you know, these are the sort of players that you just never will forget for the impact they had on the side and the joy they sort of gave us as fans. Yes, it will be great to talk about Mikel Arteta and how good he has made us, but I've done that in enough videos. I just want to show these clips of Ifeanyi Nwaneri to end the video off, because it's almost like Arsenal have now fully come full circle. When Bukayo Saka and Emile Smith Rowe were properly hitting it up, that's when Arsenal started to go to that next level. Of course, Zinchenko and Jesus helped a lot, but seeing the Haaland boys really doing their stuff, showing their quality, gave a smile to all us Arsenal fans' faces. Now we're here with Ifeanyi Nwaneri and of course Miles Lewis-Skelly as the next youngsters in line. But this time I think they'll be the youngsters to take us from, you know, title challengers to title winners. In Saka's and Smith Rowe's instance, it was taking us from a mid-table Europa League fighting club to a team that was qualifying for the Champions League. Anyway, that's it for now, Gunners. It's incredible how far Mikel Arteta has taken us. We are now a proper club and that Premier League title is certainly coming soon.